looking at your biography and all the stuff that you've done, and you have obviously spent a lot of time in your profession, where would you find a notable highlight? What's something that's really stuck out for you, that's changed the way you've looked at yourself and looked at the world?
Oh gosh, it's a tough one, isn't it? There's a few.
You can do them all. That's absolutely fine. If you want to do them all, if you've got more than one, that's brilliant.
I think certain highlights in my life has probably been when I lived in Amsterdam on my own, becoming a single parent. How that changes you as a person. You're in a foreign country, and all of a sudden I'm a parent on my own, bringing up a young child, and seeing that even at a very young age, how something that goes on in a family can affect a child so badly, even at the age of 7. That really opened my eyes, because I was lucky. I didn't have sort of an unusual childhood, so I never knew what that was like. But seeing my daughter suffer with the consequences of her parents splitting up, and how that was one of the things that really changed me. It made me look and realise that things happen to people a lot earlier on in their lives, and how that can affect you throughout the rest of your life, into adulthood. Other things, I guess, career-wise, for me, some of my roles have been very like high-performing positions, where I've had to really put myself in certain situations that I probably, would be quite affected by with my condition. One time, for example, I was bullied as an adult. I mean, it sounds really weird saying you're bullied as an adult.
No, not at all.
I never had it happen to me before, and it just broke me. And realizing that I'd heard about adults being bullied, and this was happening to me. Again, it opened my eyes up to the world, and that these things go on, but we don't know about them.
Yeah.
And having those sort of, that kind of thing going on, really changed the way I looked at people, particularly in the workplace, how people interact with each other, how we treat each other, and why people bully. I wanted to understand why people bully. Where does that come from? So yeah, those are kind of 2 points that really made me look at the world and the people around me a little bit differently.
What exactly is it that you do when you're not talking to me?
Oh yeah, I'm normally every day getting up and going to work, and I'm a recruiter. So that means I work in HR in usually big companies, and I hire in all of their new employees. So, going out into the market, finding the right people with the right skills and matching them to job roles. Lots of sort of balls to juggle. You have to be a strong communicator, a good relationship builder, all of those kind of things. So yeah, that's my sort of day-to-day role.
So does somebody come to you and say, we need 6 people to do this particular job? Is that how it works? Or are you in a company, and then when something happens, you go and then source the people that are required for that particular job?
Yeah, I'm what they call internal recruiters. So I'm not a recruitment consultant. Consultants normally tend to sort of work in agencies. So I work in-house with a big company, in their HR team, and they would say, this is the headcount we're looking for the next year. Work their budget out, look at the kind of talent they need to deliver their budget for that year, and then I would go out and find the people to fill those roles.
Is it a high-stress job? Serious question. Never spoken to a recruiter before. Don't know. I'm assuming that dealing with people, I mean, with my own anxiety issues, is obviously going to be a high-stress job.
Yeah.
But was it something that would make you go home and feel kind of uncomfortable, or?
It can be stressful, but probably that there's an element of stress that also kind of keeps us motivated, keeps us going in every day doing what we do. So that was fine. There are some jobs where that's gone over the edge, and I'm always one of those people that I don't think you necessarily need to blame the employer. It's
Mm-hmm.
also down to you as a person. You need to know when to stop. And I think at times I've not really known when to stop. I'll put everything into it, and you come crashing down. You can get ill, flus, colds, whatever, because you're just too much stress. So yes, it can be stressful, but really it's about sort of learning to handle that stress, becoming resilient. So yeah.
So can you explain how your particular mental health issues have made this perhaps a little more difficult than maybe it could have been? I know that you've told me, I know what your issues are. If you can explain to everybody where you come from here, and then we can perhaps talk a little bit about how that's altered the way that you've looked at the way you do things.
Yeah, sure. My condition is, I think it's a quite well-known condition. It's a generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. I was diagnosed with it back in 2002. Back then, there was no such thing as kind of talk therapy or anything. I wasn't offered anything except medication, and I took it, and it was an up and down roller coaster ride trying to deal with medication and trying to understand what my condition it was. And then about 2014, it was the first time I ever found out it's actually hereditary.
All right.
And that my dad had it. And so that helped me sort of edge towards the idea that I watched him live his life, and I would never have known he had this condition. And so in 2014, I decided to come off my medication and look for alternative ways to deal with it. And that's when I sort of entered into the world of sort of like CBT therapy, counselling, all those kind of things, which has helped me and got me to where I am today. Now, with lockdown, the weirdest thing was that you'd think that I would have suffered a heightened anxiety or would have gone through some, setbacks, but I didn't feel that way. It felt like everything had stopped, and all of a sudden I felt safe. And I guess that's because I was locked in. I couldn't go out. I couldn't do the things that normally would trigger my anxiety, like, for example, driving, going out, meeting people, going to work. All these things that normally would trigger just weren't there. And all I had to worry about was staying indoors and being safe. And in fact, I believe my condition helped me get through it in a way. I was extra careful with everything. Everything that came through the door was cleaned. I wouldn't let my daughter outside the house. It was like,
right.
I was, that my anxiety, heightened anxiety was, it saved me in a way, and I was happy to be at home. It sounds odd. People would probably think I'd be worried, like, you're at home, you've got no job, you should be really, really worried. And I wasn't. I was quite relaxed and quite calm. And in fact, what I decided to do during lockdown was to explore more of the avenues around like CBT, meditation. And in fact, I did do a CBT course online through Mind whilst I was in lockdown, which really helped. So yeah, it didn't have the effect that I thought it was going to have on me. It was more about when the lockdown was lifted and I had to go out into the world again. That's when the triggers started happening. Well, the thing with generalized anxiety is it can be anything. It can come at any time, and I don't always know why. There are, like you just said, you mentioned the headlights. I kind of class mine as a bit of a cloud. It comes over like a mist.
All right. Yeah.
And usually it kind of starts with physical symptoms, which can be, I get like a rushing sounds in my ears, my muscles tighten, I feel like I can't breathe. It's not a full-blown panic attack. In fact, general anxiety really goes along that avenue where you have a panic attack. I have had them, but that's not the way it tends to go, particularly for me. And I feel the sensations, and then I start to question, well, what the heck has triggered it? And it could just be someone, I don't know, walking along with a dog, or I've got to get in the car and drive up to the shops, which I do any day at any time. And then all of a sudden it just comes just like that. And the crazy thing is, when I was working, I hid my anxiety. I hid my anxiety from everybody. I've always hid it. No one would ever know that I suffer with anxiety, and I never ever told an employer. Well, they'll know now if they're watching. But I hid it, and that's really hard to keep hiding at a condition like that. But yeah, that's what I do. I hide it. I know the sensations, I feel it. I do what I need to do to get through it. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I'm so exhausted I have to sit down and rest, hide myself away for a little while until it passes. But it just comes for no reason. I don't even know why. And I can go weeks and weeks with complete calm and peace. And I think, oh, this is what it feels like to be normal. That's what I call it. Like, this is what it feels like to be normal. And then out of the blue, literally, it can just come from nowhere.
So CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is that right?
Yeah.
Could you, because you obviously know a little bit more about it than I do. I went through CBT, but I couldn't explain it to anybody else rationally. Could you explain what CBT is?
Yeah, I mean, CBT is mainly sort of looking at the moment, what your thoughts are in a certain moment. It's the idea to sort of like question yourself. Often things like when you're going through anxiety, I will question myself, why am I feeling like this? Is there any truth to this? Is there anything really to be scared of? Are you going to get hurt? Are you going to drop dead? The usual things that kind of come out of my anxiety. And the idea is I'm breaking down those thoughts to stop them kind of going into some kind of cycle. Anxiety thoughts for me in particular go into sort of like, is it rumination, where they go round and round and round. So with cognitive behavior therapy, I'm kind of learning a new way of thinking about the things that are going on around me. And for me, it has really helped. I know it doesn't help for everybody, but definitely for me, it's something that I do go to, and I use the tool at times when I need to.
Yeah, well, for personal experience, it was the absolute game changer for me, because for the best part of a decade, I couldn't actually tell anybody what was wrong. I hadn't got the vocabulary to actually explain it. So when somebody stopped me from being everywhere and just put me in one place and went, right, be in this moment, work out what's happening in this moment, and once you fix this moment, you can go and fix all the other moments. It was a massive game changer. And it's interesting to hear somebody who was using drugs as a substitute for that, because I can't, if you don't want to talk about this, we can stop. It's not a problem. I cannot understand how you could rationally substitute a chemical change in your brain for So how did you work? Can I ask you? Did you work? Was it just?
What you mean, the medication?
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious.
No, not really. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know any difference, so I just took it. Doctor said, "Here you go," and I took it for 10 years. I didn't know if there were. I didn't even realise there were any other options. It never went away. The anxiety still used to come. I don't know. I mean, quite often when you say you've got anxiety, from my experience, doctors often think anxiety always comes with depression, but I wasn't depressed. I just had anxiety, and I knew the difference. I knew what a depression would have felt like. I've been, times when I may have been very, very low, but I knew it wasn't depression. And so to me, it was like they were giving me an antidepressant, but they weren't helping with the anxiety, the issue. How could I deal with this every day? And I just functioned. I still worked, I still was a mother, I still was a partner, and I still had friends, and all I did was hide it from everyone.
You and I both know, because we've been here a long time, how dreadful this is to have to deal with and how to work with. There are going to be, I don't know how many people who are sitting at home right now thinking, oh my God, how am I going to cope?
Yeah.
Where do you think we should be focusing our interest now as people who understand what's going on, to help the people who, like you before and like me before, didn't know they had a problem? Where do we start? How do we help these people now? How do we change the way that they're able to see what's going on? Is it a conversation thing? Do we need to talk to more people, do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Definitely more conversations. I think, like, kind of going back over it, but I kept it a secret. To me, it was like, if I let people know that I've got some kind of mental health issue, I will be looked at differently. I'd be treated differently. I wouldn't get that promotion. People would avoid me. And it wasn't until I joined Time to Change that I actually started to talk more about it to my family. I don't think they really understood that I had this. And I just used to think, no, it's something that happens to other people and it isn't really serious enough. It's nothing, I can deal with it. But little did they know what was really going on in my life and in my head and how I was coping. And so I started to have more conversations. And I think it's the best thing that you can do, is to start to be more open.